Hello and welcome to MPOWER's live session today. We're going to give it maybe 30 seconds for everyone to join, but welcome, we're glad to have you. Excellent. I see the participant number climbing, so I'm going to go ahead and do an intro, but welcome to, I think, our 5th live session. Today I have Ron and Ashwini as our student loan experts, and my name is Claire. I've been at MPOWER a little over 5 years now, and something that always struck me about MPOWER is that MPOWER is a company of former international students really striving to make the experience better for future international students like you. And so today, Ron and Ashwini are going to share a little bit of their personal journeys. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive in the most common questions we get about our application, maybe about 15 minutes or so. And then we're going to open up the rest of the session just to your questions. So on the webinar, if you look at the bottom, you'll see there's a field called Q&A. And so as you have questions today, you can ask as many as you want. Please leave them in that Q&A function for us at any time. And we will either answer your questions live, or some of our wonderful chat moderators will jump in to answer your question directly, particularly if it's a little bit more specific. So I'm going to just give it a few more seconds, but please, if you have questions, go ahead and start dropping them in the Q&A field, and our chat moderators will go ahead and start answering. But while we wait for others to join, I'm going to send out a poll real quick so we get to learn just a little bit more about you. So launching the poll. Great. And so while our attendees are filling out the poll, I'm going to have our esteemed panelists introduce themselves. So Ron, do you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your journey to MPOWER?
Yeah, sure thing. So I actually did my undergrad in India. I did a bachelor's in electrical engineering. After that, I worked for a couple of years there. Then I decided to get my master's in the US. I also wanted to change streams, so I got a master's in finance. And Empower was my first job after I graduated my master's. And yeah, I've been here since then. It's been great.
Awesome. And so Ashwini, same question. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about your journey to MPOWER?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashwini Kumar. I'm the India General Manager and the Vice President at MPOWER. I have been here for almost 3 years. Prior to that, I did start my journey similar to Ron with an undergrad in engineering from India. Then I built some work experience, and then I came to the US to study. This is, probably 15 years back. And my journey was also arduous, and we'll talk about it at some point. But it has the same, taking a collateralized loan and, went through all of that process. And a very different culture, right? Like I'm coming from India, going to the US. So it had its own challenges and a lot of other opportunities and benefits also on the same token. A lot of learnings. I spent close to about 12 years in the US, building myself on the majorly in the financial services and the consulting side. And once I came back to India, I was looking for something in the education space or something that impacts education, but I had a background in financial services. MPOWER seemed to be the right sweet spot. I've been here for 3 years, and it's been an amazing journey so far.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. So if you just joined, there is a poll going on. You have maybe 5-10 seconds to quickly answer before I close it and share the results. But for those that just joined, I see there's actually a bunch more people. If you have questions for us, and you should have questions for us, please drop them in that Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. We'll either answer the questions live throughout the session, or we'll have people go ahead and from our team answer you directly in the Q&A function. But this isn't ask us anything, so ask MPOWER anything. We're excited to answer your questions today. So ending the poll. Great, so I'm sharing results in case you're curious. It looks like, wow, we have a huge representation from Africa today. Welcome, as well as Southeast Asia and some attendees from actually all continents. It looks like the vast majority of you, almost 60%, have been accepted to study. And so you're probably exploring, I'm guessing, because you're here, financing options with as well. We have a good quarter of people who are thinking about studying for next year. About 80% are master's students, a few MBA, some bachelors, and some other. And then a really diverse crowd in terms of major, and even split between business and management, STEM, other, and some arts and literature as well. And then last but not least, it looks like we have 2/3 of you have applied for an MPOWER loan. So that's great to know. So we can tailor some of our questions and responses to you today. So thanks for sharing that. So jumping right in, Ron, I'm going to start with you. You told us a little bit about your student journey. Do you mind talking just a little bit more about your journey as an international student to the US, some of your challenges that you faced and how you wish and how MPOWER could have solved them for you?
Yeah, sure thing. So when I actually finished my, when I actually decided to come to the US, I wanted to change my degree from engineering to finance. So I actually applied for the first year. I got into a couple of schools, but then I couldn't get financing for that particular year. So then after that, I actually deferred admission for that year. I went the following year, which was 2015, and then MPOWER still not available, I think. But I was able to arrange financing by then, and I was able to come to the US, get my master's degree, and so it's really helpful. But if MPOWER was available at that time, I think it would be much easier. I would have been able to come to the US like a year earlier, so I'd maybe start my journey a year earlier. So yeah.
Wow. So Ashwini, same question. How could MPOWER have helped you in your journey, and what were some of the challenges you faced? I cannot hear Ashwini.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Mine is a much older story than Ron's. As I said, right, it was 15 years back. And back in the day, the only option we had in India was a collateralized loan. There was not even an option to get a co-signer. And a lot of Indians at that time used to, even if they had any uncles, aunts in the US, then they used to try and see, can they get a co-signer or something like that. So I think if MPOWER had been there, one of the things that really put burden on me that, hey, I'm putting a pressure on my parents, right? Because they are having to take a loan on their head or using the collateral that my father had built over time to send me abroad, right? And that, I think apart from any other challenge, I think that was something that used to weigh on my head. And I do see and hear from some of our conversations with students today that they are able to, with the options available, especially like MPOWER, where they don't have to bother their parents. They're more confident, they're more independent to be able to take it on themselves, right? And not have that social pressure also on top of it. So I think MPOWER would have been in a very sweet spot for me if it had been there back in the day.
Awesome. So now we're going to walk through just a few of our most common application questions. Once we get through these, we're going to turn it over to taking questions from the crowd. So please keep dropping your questions in that Q&A function. And starting with Ashwini. So can you tell everyone a bit more about the cosigner and collateral, how that works through a loan? Do you need it for MPOWER?
Yeah, exactly. Like in usually in typical situations with banks or other financial institutions that offer loans, they either ask for a cosigner, which typically means a guarantor. Like if you are not able to pay or if you have challenges, then they would go after the cosigner, or they ask for collateral, like you have any physical asset like a home or real estate or something that you can pledge to say that will act as a guarantee. Thankfully, in MPOWER's case, we do not require cosigners, collaterals, co-applicants, or any kind of credit score. And for students, it is understood that they will not have built a significant credit history. So it's okay if they don't even have a credit history from that standpoint. And I think all MPOWER loan, right now, even if students want to pay, do a cosign collateral, we don't have that option because we believe that we are looking at the students' earning potential and go from there, future earning potential of the student and go from there.
Awesome. And just as a follow-up, can you tell everyone a bit more about the repayment period for the MPOWER loan? That's one of those common questions we get.
Yeah. The repayment period, repayment term basically starts right from there in school. So all MPOWER loans feature an interest-only payment option. So they don't have to pay the full interest and principal while they are in school. So during the tenure of their program, whether it's a 1.5-year program or a 2-year program, it's only an interest-only payment while they're in school. And then they get another 6 months after graduation as a moratorium period. And after that, there's a 10-year period where they are going with both interest and principal payments to start catching up on their payments.
Great. So very similar. how much money can someone borrow from MPOWER through our loan?
Applicants can borrow from MPOWER a lifetime maximum of 100,000 US dollars across academic periods, with a minimum of $2,001 and a maximum of $50,000 per application and academic period, such as a semester or an academic year in general.
Awesome. And then last question for Ashwini before turning a few questions over to Ron. What can you use the MPOWER loan for?
Almost everything that's related to your travel abroad and education abroad. Like it can be used for all education related expenses, including but not limited to tuition, books, meal plans, housing, health insurance, whatever is approved by the school's financial aid office, since funds are disbursed directly to the school so that the student is not burdened with any kind of foreign exchange issues as well.
Great, thanks, Ashwini. So, Ron, from being a Rockstar attendee from one of our previous sessions, you know that visa, that's one of those common questions we tend to get. So, can you tell our audience more about how you could get a visa support letter from MPOWER?
Yeah, sure. So as soon as your loan application is actually reviewed by the underwriting team, you'll actually sometimes get a visa support letter or an approval till. Like you'll either get one of those. But if you really need like a visa support letter just for your immigration process to get your visa to come to the US, you can just reach out to your relationship manager and we'll be able to issue that to you to help you get your visa.
So can you help the audience understand where the visa support letter fits into our overarching loan process? Maybe walk us through the steps real in brief.
Yeah, sure thing. So what happens is you actually fill in your application, then it comes to us, which is basically my team. We review the application, we review all your documents, make sure everything matches what you said in your application. And after that, that's when you actually receive your support letter. And when you get your support letter, the next step of the process is to actually get your visa. So then you'll go to the visa office, get your visa done. After you get your visa, you upload your visa to us, and that's when your loan is completely done. Like it's just the last step. We just need to verify that you actually got your visa before you come to the US. So yeah.
Great. So I think our chat moderator might have a few links to share that provides more information about this topic and how to reach out to us if you need help with a visa support letter. So our chat moderator will likely jump in shortly with those links. But Ron, last question before we turn over to the audience questions. I know everyone's quite interested in knowing how they can reduce their interest rate. Tell us more.
Yeah, so there are actually 3 ways that you can reduce your interest rate after you get your MPOWER loan. One of them is to as soon as you sign up for auto ACH, which is basically an automatic payment that gets deducted from a bank account, you get a 50 basis points discount for that. The second discount is after you graduate and you actually give us a proof of your job offer. There's another discount for that. And the third one is if you sign up for auto ACH and you make payments for 6 months continuously on time, you get another interest rate discount of 50 basis points. So in total, you can get 150 basis point interest rate reduction, which will bring down your loan amount from your interest rate from 11.99 to 10.49.
Excellent. So I am now moving us along to the audience questions. So if you haven't yet dropped a few questions in the Q&A field, now is your time. So please send questions over so we can take them live. So first question, Ashwini, I think this is a great question for you to start with. How long does the entire process take from beginning to end? What does that look like for us? And how early should one apply?
Sure. So you can apply as early as 12 months before your loan start period, but typically it takes 30 seconds for your 30 seconds to check eligibility on the website, and to complete an application it takes no more than 30 minutes, assuming you have all the information ready to go with that. And at that point, if the decision is in favor, you might get a conditional offer, and you're required to submit all documents at that juncture. If you're able to submit all the documents, typically it takes 3 to 5 business days to get a loan decision done. Now, during really peak season, sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. We have also seen times when we have finished it in 2 days, but during a peak season, there's a little bit of lag, right now. but more often than not, we do really quick catch-ups and go forward from there.
Great. And so just building on that a little bit, Ron, what can our audience do to get their application approved faster?
Yeah, good question, Claire. So to get your application approved faster, I think what we are looking for is documents that match whatever you said in your application. And you should have most of them already because it's pretty much the same documents that you use to get your admission in your university. We ask for the same information. Like if your university required you to send a GMAT score, GRE score, we ask for that information. If they required an English score, we ask for that information. We ask for like passport information just to know who you are, things like that. So the most important part here would be to try to give us documents that match whatever you said on your application, and that would be the ideal way to get your loan approved faster. Because if there's everything there, like whoever is reviewing your application can go through everything and give you a decision. The delay there is if something is missing, they'll have to reach back out to you, and that's usually what causes the most delays because there's a lot of time spent in the back and forth between you and Empower.
Great. And so one final question on this topic, Ashwini. So what if someone has an urgent deadline and haven't applied yet, or they need funding for for spring? What's the way to escalate a request with us or get that looked at quicker?
Yeah. So we have an escalations team that looks at applications and tickets on a periodic basis, on a daily basis, at least a couple of times a day. So when they are finding out that, okay, a student needs escalation, sometimes through subject line and otherwise through other methods of scanning through emails really quickly, then they're able to escalate internally, and that takes a more expedited process. Like typically we have seen cases where students have a visa deadline, they maybe started application a little late in the game, and because of that there's a little bit of a lag in the whole system. So what happens is we typically escalate and try to do a really quick decision, sometimes even within a day, to get that moving.
Yeah, I want to add something there. So if you're actually applying for the fall semester, there's no need to actually expedite it unless you have a visa interview in the next week or something, because I'm sure you'll hear back within a week. So that's one thing. And yeah, the other thing is if you also want to get another reason for expedite is one is that another one is if you have a past balance or anything. This is for people who are already in school. Like that's another reason for expedite. But if you're in the fall semester and you're applying right now, there's no point in actually expediting your application because you don't need the funds for another 2 months.
Great. So Ron, sticking with you, there's actually a lot of questions about test scores today. So do you need any test scores to apply for the MPOWER loan, and should people add their test scores?
Yeah, sure. So test scores are not really required to get an MPOWER loan. Like we've given loans to people who do not have test scores, but it always helps if you have a test score and if you have the document with you. I would say just enter the information. There's no harm that comes out of entering that information in your application.
Perfect. And let's see what's next. Okay, this is probably a simple one. Ashwini, will we issue loans for schools that are on our school list? And maybe taking a step back, the better question is what schools do we work with, and how do we figure that out, or how do we determine that?
Sure. On our website, there is an entire list of schools that we support. It also includes colleges from Canada. So all schools, universities, programs, everything is listed there. So anybody who has got an admit letter from any one of those colleges and universities would definitely be pre-eligible for our application and be able to go through that. So any school that is not falling there, then obviously they won't be eligible for the program, but that's one. Second thing is we also don't look at only whether you're an MBA or a STEM program. We also take in people who are from arts, psychology, pure sciences, and all other courses. So if a school is listed there and that program is part of our eligible list, you would surely be eligible to start moving the application forward. So I would recommend going down to our Empower Financing website. You can just type Empower Financing schools support, and you will see in the top two search results that link, and you can go through their entire list. It's very easy to go through on that site.
Maybe our chat moderator can drop the link as well directly into the chat to help people out a little bit. And so Ron, just to add on to Ashwini's answer, how do we choose our schools? How do we determine that list?
So there's actually a huge process that goes into determining the school list. We work with the top, I think, 200 or 250 schools in the US, and there are also more that we added in Canada. So that's why I think our school list now is around 400 schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the way we come up with that list is actually we go through a lot of databases, like federal and private databases, to come up with the graduation rates, the payment rates, things like that. We look at a lot of factors for each school, and then finally decide if a school should actually be on the eligible list for Empower to work with.
And I'd like to add, right, for those who are planning, let's say for next year, and they don't see their schools right now, don't get discouraged. This year, we have plans to expand that list by a decent number. So continue to check our site. And then if you see the school list, then you'd be eligible to move forward.
Great. So there's a lot of questions, I think, about visa approvals that I'm seeing. And so maybe both of you can share your perspective on this, but what should a student do if they didn't get their visa approved and want to defer the loan? What's the right way going about that?
Sure, I can start. The way you go about that is you can just reach out to your relationship manager and tell them what happened. Like you were not able to get your visa in time. I'm knowing that's happening a lot these days because there's a backlog even for the visa processing office. So if that happens to you, you can just reach out to your relationship manager and we are able to defer the loan internally for you. So you won't actually lose your loan or anything. It'll be the same loan, the same terms, the same everything. It's just we'll pay it out 6 months later instead of in August.
And this is also applicable for people who have not been able to secure a visa date, forget, visa declines in a visa date. So
yeah.
Right. And actually, so I have someone asking about their application was declined and need to reapply in 90 days. Is it possible, if they've addressed the reason it was declined, is it possible to bypass that 90-day period, or how would they go about that?
Yeah, I think I'll take this.
I didn't say someone, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, if your application was actually declined and you were able to actually address the reason for it, you can reach out to your relationship manager, and then it may take a couple of days for them to get back to you as to if that was approved or not. And after they get back to you, they'll actually tell you, okay, you can go ahead and submit a new application. They have a method of allowing you to submit a new application, even if your initial application was declined.
Which is basically saying they'd be able to copy a lot of the content from the old application to the new without putting the student through the whole process of filling a brand new application from start. This also includes, porting documents from one application to another. So.
Awesome. So there's sort of questions about how interest rate works with disbursement. Do I pay interest rate in the whole loan? Just how do interest rates work? So I see a variety of questions about our interest rate. Ron, can you walk us through just how we calculate interest and at a very high level?
Sure. Sure. So our interest rates are 11.99. There's also a loan payment calculator that you can put in. I think we can share a link for that. So the way the interest rates actually work is, say you are approved for a $50,000 loan for fall 2022. So in August 2022, and your first disbursement, your school told us you only require 10,000 for September, and then another 10,000 in say November. So when the first disbursement is made, 10,000 is paid out to your school. You only pay interest on the 10,000. So 11.99% interest rate multiplied by 10,000, that would be your yearly interest rate, and then divided by 12. That's the monthly payment that you have to make. And after that, when your second disbursement happens in November, your total loan amount will be 20,000, and only that's when the 20,000 number is taken. So only what's given out to the school, the interest rate is charged on that.
And so some lenders, oh, sorry to interrupt you, but some lenders I know have a penalty for paying early. Tell us what MPOWER does.
Sure. Ashwini, do you want to?
Yeah, we don't have any early payment, penalty of any sort. So if people are paying early, that's fine. There have been students who either did because of an internship or, a fat signing bonus at the time of employment, graduation and employment. They've been able to pay off a good chunk of the loan. It's also okay that even if you're not able to early pay or prepay the entire amount, if you want to do only, part payments of early payment, that's also acceptable. So there's no penalty of any sort on that context.
Awesome. So part of the process is once you're approved for a loan is once a student starts school, we need to disperse the loan to the school so the student can start. Ashwini, can you walk us through how the disbursement process works at MPOWER? There's some students asking questions like, can the loan be dispersed to me? Can I use it for my living expenses? How does that work?
Yes, so the loan is always, without exception, dispersed only to the university for the program that they have signed up for or been approved for. And this happens like we work with the university, we have partnerships with the university. So we have a date or timeline that's fixed with them on what the disbursement, disbursement tranches would be. Basically, if you're doing for 2 separate semesters, then we know which semester it is, what is the payment amount, and how do we break that down. So before you start school, the funds are disbursed to the university directly. And for any living expenses and all, you are able to work with the university and get those funds for your, either they put it in your bank account, the university does, or it puts it in a university student account from where you're able to access those funds for your living expenses and all. But almost in 100% of the cases, the funds are disbursed only to the university.
Great. So this is a really great question that's quite specific as well. I think you both could answer it. So sorry, I'll let you see who wants to step in first. But so this person has been approved for a loan, but the loan is actually more than they need. What should they do? Should they come in and come back to MPOWER and say, I need less? Should they wait for their school to certify the loan? What's your advice for this student who requested too much?
So I'll go first, Ron, fill in, all right? So the way it works is, let's say you're approved for $60,000, but either your requested amount was less or the school does not need more than a particular amount. A couple of different things you can do. You can either let us know, and then we can also disburse it in tranches, right? So basically, your very first semester, if you only want part payment disbursed, then only that amount is going to be disbursed. That also helps you in having a lower interest payment. So only 20,000 needed for the first semester, then you don't need the full disbursement. In fact, many times universities themselves push back, even if we were to make a full payment on that front. So what happens is you say that, hey, I need only 20,000 for the first semester. And you can tell us the schedule, and we also have the schedule from the university. So we work with that, and only the prorated amount of disbursement is charged for interest payments.
Yeah, and some suggestions there, just general advice. If you're approved for like a higher loan, say if you're approved for 60,000 in Ashwini's example, and you only require 30,000 for that semester, I would say just keep the entire $60,000 offer with you. Because if you ever need it later, you don't need to go through the application process again. We can just kind of push the funds to whichever semester you need it for.
Great. And so heads up that we're about halfway through our session, 30 minutes to go. So if you haven't yet asked questions in the Q&A field, this is a good time to think about what questions you have and add them for those that haven't used it yet. I also see a few repeat questions. So I'm going to rapid fire answers real quick. One is, can I use a cosigner for the MPOWER loan? The answer is no, we do not accept cosigners. We believe that students have the full ability to take a loan on their own. So cosigners are not part of the process for MPOWER. Can I get the money dispersed to me? Nope, we disperse straight to the school, just reiterating some of the answers we said earlier. And then, ooh, this is actually a new one. Ron, I'm gonna have you start with this one. So there is a rising interest rate environment in the world right now. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between a variable rate loan and what MPOWER does with a fixed rate loan, and why a fixed rate loan might be, I think I said loan, why a fixed rate loan might be better for students right now?
Yeah, sure thing. Right. In the current environment, because interest rates are going up, if you borrow something at say 10% for the next, and you're going to take a 10-year loan, most likely, in the next say 5 years, if interest rates go up by 5%, your loan amount is going to be 15, like your interest rate is going to become 15%, which is like a huge amount. Like that's like a 50% increase from what you originally signed on to. And that'll make your monthly payments really high. The advantage with the MPOWER loan is it's a fixed interest rate. It doesn't matter what the governments do, what happens in the world. Like the interest rate is always going to be 11.99 with discounts 10.49. So yeah, it's always beneficial to have a fixed interest rate in rising interest rate environment, and a variable interest rate in the if it's the other side. If the interest rates are going down, it's better to have a variable one because then your interest payments will be lower every month. Ashwini, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you covered it all. We have seen cases where certain financial institutions have had variable interest rate, and unless you are like, you have the time and space to, to be looking at, hey, what is the underlying benchmark, and am I going to be tracking the benchmark? How is the macroeconomic factors going to impact the long term? We have seen quite a few students get burnt in the process, or they had a different expectation of what they'd be paying, and all of a sudden it starts rising over a period of time. That's one of the reasons why MPOWER very consciously chose to keep a very fixed interest rate, right? You like it or not, you know that this is the interest rate, there's no ambiguity. And the goal was also not to have your mindset disturbed during the time period that you are studying, right? Your focus is purely on education and how to build a career and networking for jobs and things of that nature. So I think fixed rate offers a peace of mind at the very minimum during your course of study, and even beyond as you're integrating into the US or Canadian culture over there.
Yeah. One thing there, the most important part is your monthly payment does not change throughout the term of your loan. So say when you get your loan offer from us, there'll be an amount there. Like say if it's $250, $250 every month for 10 years, and that's it. But if it's a variable interest rate, say this month it can be 250, next month it can be 265, the month after that 275, and if they cut interest rates, it may be 240. So that's the risk you're playing with, going up, the payment going up and down. Versus the way we do things is just one payment till the end of the loan.
And there is enough data in the market, there's enough research in the market that with the rising inflation, we are seeing a rise in interest rates. So whether you go with MPOWER loan or not, I would say be cautious, be very judicious in how you're making that decision, and how do you see the next few years panning out if you decide to go with a variable interest rate nonetheless.
Great advice, guys. So just adding on to that, so Ron, you mentioned that the payment doesn't change during the entire course of the loan, and technically it does change in school versus out of school. Can you clarify that for the group?
Yeah. When I said the payment doesn't change, I mean, we have an interest-only period. Yeah. We have an interest-only period where you're only paying interest, and then after you graduate, you start paying principal on the loan. So there's only one change that happens. So it's $250 while you're in school. After you graduate, it should be probably $325. And actually, if you use the loan calculator that we'll share right
Yeah.
now, you'll actually get all that information. You'll know exactly your payment amount, what's in school, what's it after you graduate, and everything. You have the entire list of monthly payments that you need.
Ron, just adding on to that, what should someone do if they're having trouble paying in school? Let's say it just turns out they need more money, they misbudgeted, don't have time to work. How would someone go about working with us if they were struggling to pay that in-school payment?
Sure. I would say don't worry about anything. If you can't make the payment, I would say reach out to us. We are here to help you. There are multiple options that we have available. As long as you tell us, we'll be able to help you work through it. And it also will not affect your credit score at all. But if you don't talk to us and like there's no communication for a couple of months, it's possible that your credit score will get affected. So yeah, just reach out to us, and then depending on each individual's needs, we'll be able to recommend the best option for you.
And we do have a credit building option as well. So we're able to provide a much lower payment. We just, the only thing we need is you just to let us know. It's about communication. So if you reach out and let us know you're struggling, our servicing team is excited to work with you because we want to help students. We're not penalizing you. So please reach out. We will absolutely work with you to make sure you're comfortable during your schooling and afterwards. So I see one question here. Actually, Ron, you just mentioned credit scores. Maybe we can elaborate a little bit on that. And Ashwini, maybe you're the right person to chat through this. There's a little confusion about what a credit history is, what a credit score is, and how MPOWER leverages that information. Could you clarify that for the asker or the student asking?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we don't take any form of credit score in our variable, right? But then even if you have a good credit score or a bad credit score, that is not part of our underwriting criteria at all. So if we are looking at credit history, it is only to see if there is any red flags, right? We know students won't have sufficient credit history. Many of them don't have any credit history. Some countries don't provide credit history for students that young. So there are so many different reasons, because of which credit history itself is not it's not part of our variable list. But most importantly, we know that students won't have enough credit history. We only look for things like, are there any red flags? Like, is there any student who's probably taken for any reason, bunch of different loans and they couldn't repay? And is there a red flag, right? That's all. But outside of that, it's not something that we use for diligently tracking somebody's credit and saying that, hey, you get a loan because of your credit score being high or low. Credit score is not at all a consideration for us.
So just to help everyone out, Ashwini, what's the difference between credit history and a credit score?
So credit score is a score. So there is a credit building agency that is actually going to be tracking your different credit profile, your credit profile based on your financial transactions, with different banks and institutions or lenders. Now, the credit score is a composite variable. It's a score that is given as a composite variable to all your different transactions. So in the US, it's a different score range. In India, it's different. In other countries, it's different. So that's one single score. But a credit history looks at, okay, how many loans you have taken, what was the time period during which you started paying back. So there's a lot more definition of that variable in terms of, building out a story, right? Like, you took a loan on so-and-so date and how frequently you've been paying and you've been, doing well, not well. So credit history is it gives a more ample story to how overall you've been managing your profile and your credit profile with your bankers and your financial repayability.
Yeah, I can give you an example there actually. So credit scores usually range between 300 to 800 points. Sometimes it may be 900, but when I say Empower doesn't use a credit score, if you have an 800 credit score or a 500 credit score, it really won't make any difference to your application. You still get the same interest rate. Your application is looked at the same way. So that's what I mean when Empower doesn't look at your credit score to make a loan decision.
Yeah, and 800 is an excellent score. 500 is a really poor score, but Empower doesn't care, right? Irrespective. That's what Ron, I think, is saying, right?
Yeah.
And if you're unfamiliar with exploring financial products, many lenders out there will only lend to you if you have a certain credit score. And that's what Empower is saying we do not do. We're not one of the lenders that restricts based on credit scores. Same thing. Many lenders, if you don't have a credit history, will not work with you. Empower is not one of those lenders. So that's one of the biggest things that makes us different from traditional lenders, which do depend on that credit history or a high credit score overall. And very exciting question about documents. Ron, I have someone here looking to understand what they can be used as a proof of funds document. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Oh, sure. For proof of funds, it can be pretty much anything that proves that you have that much money somewhere. It can be bank statements, investment accounts. It can be, say, your parents are working and they have a salary. Like they can also submit like a salary check, like a salary slip, things like that. Basically, anything that kind of proves that you have that amount of funding, it'll work. And along with that, just be sure to submit two other proofs. One is a Empower sponsor letter. I think there's a link to that on your dashboard. And also there's a proof of ID. If it's not your own personal funds, if you're using like your parents' funds or like an uncle's funds or something, we also need a proof of ID of that person.
Great. And just that, on the topic of documents, there's a lot of I-20 questions. So Ron, what is an I-20? And what does someone do if they're waiting for an I-20? Is there a time period or some restriction or a deadline for them to upload an I-20?
Yeah, so the I-20 is actually issued by a school after you get admission. So the way the process works is you get your admission letter. After that, you have to prove proof of funds to the school. That's when they give you the I-20. And then you use that I-20 to get your visa. And that's how the entire process works. So to get your I-20, you'll need a proof of funds statement. You can use our support letter to submit to your school to get that I-20. You can also use the same support letter through your visa process. So yeah, that's pretty much how the I-20 works. So, and there's no kind of deadline. It really depends on each individual school when they issue it to the student. So you'll need to contact your school. If they say you need a proof of funds as soon as you get the the support letter from us, you'll be able to send that to them and get your I-20 from. If they're delaying it on that, I think you just need to keep following up with your school.
Great, thanks, Ron. So pivoting the conversation just a little bit. So we know that MPOWER is clearly the best financial product for international students just on the numbers alone. But we do more than that. It's not just a loan. Ashwini, can you tell our students here or our potential students what our Path Success program is that's available to all our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's our journey is in the goal and mission of how Empower came to be was more around how do we make entire student journey successful, right? And go from there. So I think the financing is a very important variable in the whole equation. So we started with financing, but then we also saw that there are students, and many of us were international students, right? So I graduated in deep recession when the 70-year recession in 2008-9 happened, and that's when I graduated, right? And it was a time of struggle for majority of the international students. So we have so many such stories where people have struggled despite having good grades from coming from grade school and all, and going back home is not, if it's not by design, then it's obviously much more strenuous for the student as well as their own career path, right? And how it works out in the long term. So we have designed something called as Path to Success program. As part of that program, even after you graduate, right? And if you're not able to find a job, or let's say you do have a job or recession or anything happens, and unfortunately you go through troubled times and you need to get another job, or you get laid off, fired, need to get another job. So Empower has set up a structure called the Path to Success program for career support, right? We help with resume support, we help with career coaching and career guidance, we help with one-on-one mentorship and counseling. We also give access to tools that are paid tools for Empower, but we give it for free to the students because, as I said, right, this is a free service that Empower is doing to ensure that the student is able to continue their journey in the US or Canada in terms of not just fulfilling their education, but how to make it more productive at the workplace. So that's a Path to Success program, which is a full service career. It's pretty much like a placement firm of its own and has wings. In fact, in 2020, when there was COVID, and a lot of people, the COVID lockdowns, and a lot of people were graduating without jobs at that point, the Path to Success program was really put to full use and effect, and a lot of students were able to get help from that standpoint. So I would say, even if you have a job after graduation, you should not hesitate to reach out and see how to even improve your chances going forward, and what other coaching or benefits you could leverage from Empower. Just because that service is available, take advantage of it.
Awesome. So I see a lot of questions which are pretty detailed, but I'm going to kind of summarize them in one question. I need my loan approved for a visa interview, or school is starting, or I need an answer quickly. I know we covered this earlier, but our attendees have probably switched over the course of this session. What should someone do if they have an upcoming date and they need a response or an answer from us because there's an upcoming date or time pressure or they applied late? Ashwini, I'm going to turn it to you.
I think reach out to your relationship manager. In the signature of the relationship manager, there is they should have written to you. You should have emails from them, and in that you can actually look at their link to their calendar. So you can block time on their calendar and say, hey, I need to urgently speak with you. And for any reason, let's say the calendar also is blocked, or you are like really need desperate immediate attention, just type the subject line escalation and send it to us, to our email, and then somebody will get back to you within 24 hours or less.
Awesome. And so, Ron, what are the most common, or one thing to add, actually a follow-up question, how do we determine our relationship manager? I think as Ashwini just shared, you should have an email from them or a few emails from them with a link to their calendars on there. But if you don't have one, our chat moderator is going to share a link to our form in the chat. And you can just type in escalation and put the context in the body of that form. But we're going to add that link to our chat. So you're able to click it right now. Okay, Ron.
One thing I want to add is a relationship manager is established only after the application has been submitted, right? So for them to know who the relationship manager is, then the relationship manager will reach out. There'll be automated emails coming out, right? There is a contact us page on our website that is also taken care of by a team of other relationship managers who, even if you're earlier in the stage or have some general inquiries, you can still reach out to the contact us page and somebody would get back to you.
And so, Ron, I have two questions that are pretty similar. How do you defer a loan? Can I defer my loan? How does that affect me, or the loan deferral affect me? Then I have a second question of what are the common reasons for a loan application to be declined?
Sure. So the first one about deferral. To defer your loan, you just need to reach out to us. It's better to do it earlier than later. As soon as you know you're getting deferred, just reach out to us. And you don't really have to do anything. We just change the payments schedule, and we also change like the whole contact that we have with your school to 6 months later. That's what we do. We just change a couple of dates on our end, and that's how it works. And you'll get a new offer or a new loan offer or everything updated a little later. But yeah, that's all you have to do. You just have to reach out to us and we'll take care of the rest. And you'll finally get like the new offer with the new dates that you need.
Awesome. And so I see a lot of people.
I forgot the second question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the most common reasons for declines. Most common reasons for declines is I think some of them are ineligible school or programs. Some people apply for other schools which are not part of our approved list. Some programs are also not eligible. Like if you're not doing a degree program, those are kind of not eligible. But it depends on the school and the program that you're kind of doing. So it's very vague over there. But the other one is you just may get declined because your future prospects may not be enough to cover your student loan. So I think that's the major reason between an approval and a decline.
And actually, one cool thing I've learned working at MPOWER is one of the questions we get is, how much money should I ask for? I have no idea. And so our rule of thumb is that your loan should be no more than your first annual salary after graduation. And that's actually what our VP of Credit Innovation likes to tell students and applicants. So if you're planning next year and you're just not sure what to ballpark, your loan requested size should be about your first annual salary or less, not more. You're gonna have trouble paying us back over time. But that's his advice that he shared in a previous session with MPOWER. But I actually see a nice follow-up question that is asking, how do I get more money outside the loan, essentially? And so there's a few things that MPOWER offers, and we'll share some links in the chat that we also do to help students in addition to past success for job placement. One is we have a pretty aggressive, that's the wrong word, a pretty awesome scholarship program that is only open to international students. So if you go online, you'll see a Global Citizen Scholarship, a scholarship just for MBAs, a scholarship just for women in STEM. And there's also a monthly scholarship, which is typically open to everyone and just has a different essay topic every month. So you can apply for a scholarship with a quick essay every month. That's great, right? So go to our website. Someone's going to share our scholarship link in our chat, but our scholarships are designed just for you. And the application is pretty straightforward. But we're not the only scholarship provider for international students. Highly recommend going online and doing some searches for your degree program and seeing what else is out there for you. But there's a lot of money available for students, particularly for graduate studies. And one more cool thing that MPOWER does, if you're getting accepted into school, you're probably getting put in touch with many other international students as well, just like you. I think a lot of schools set up chats and groups ahead of time. So MPOWER has an awesome, that's my word of the day, an awesome referral program. And so the referral program works like this. If you refer a student to MPOWER and they add your email address to their application, when they're approved for a loan, you get $300 USD, typically issued as a gift card, Amazon of your choice. But $300 is a lot of money, and that's for every student you refer. There's no limit. So you're getting to meet your new classmates right now. Maybe refer MPOWER. You could make a lot of money quickly. But the bonus part, and the reason they're incentivized to actually use the program too, is that they also get $100 through the referral program. So just to reiterate, you can earn $300 for every successful referral you give to MPOWER. And the person you're referring can actually get $100 from this. And I think our chat moderator will add a link so you can explore our referral program too. But, highly recommend maybe sharing with your new international student friends if you think MPOWER might be a great fit for them. So, and just to summarize, we have our past success program to help students get jobs during and after school and also brush up their resume, maybe helping with interviews as well. We have scholarships for international students, and we have a referral program, and that is in addition to the MPOWER loan. I also know we're in our last 7 minutes, so this is your last chance to submit questions. I think Ashwini, I have a pretty cool question for you, or I think it's cool. What advice do you have for our listeners today that want to become international students or are currently in the process? What do you wish someone had told you?
I think the access to information today is a lot more than what was back in the day, right? But I think a couple of things is, much as we have trepidation about, how the journey is going to be and how tough it's going to be, it's very important to equip ourselves with as much information as possible. The university websites give tons of information. MPOWER websites give tons of information beyond just the financing aspects. So I think leveraging yourself with information is very important, not just because you should know what needs to be done, but also because it also helps to make this journey, right? Whether people are going from Asia or Africa or even Latin America, right? It's a different culture, it's a different country, different systems and structures. And people have to learn all these things alongside of trying to focus on an education system which may not be the same as their home country. Like I know the way I did engineering is done very differently. Other teaching methodologies are very different in the US, right? So you're having to adapt to all of that stuff. So I think it's very important to equip yourself with all that information even before you make the journey, so that when you are there, you have more time to focus on education, right? At the end of the day, nothing beats what your grades are and how much knowledge you have absorbed. I mean, you're making a very difficult journey, right? So it's very important to be fully equipped with information before, so that when you go there, land there, you're more focused on the education and building your journey and your career from there on. So I think that will be my 2 cents.
Also notice it's a good 2 cents, Ashwini. Ron, no surprises. Same question for you.
Yeah, so pretty much what Ashwini said, but to add on to that, I would say also be a little more open to new experiences. I think that happens a lot because you're going to a new place. Try to make a lot of friends, try to network a lot while in school. That really helps you, especially when you're looking for jobs and stuff. Like all the friends that you make in school will help you throughout your career. And after that, I think another thing would be to like kind of talk to your seniors. Like if you can, before you go there, just talk to them, get to know a little bit about the school. If you actually want to go to that school or you want to choose a different school, you can get a lot more insight by talking to some of the people who are actually at that school. And yeah, I think that's my advice for you guys. Hopefully you do really well, and hopefully I see you sometime.
See an application.
No, I actually meet them somewhere and they tell me that, yeah, I remember you from there.
So find Ron on LinkedIn, everyone.
No, but that was a good advice about speaking to the, like you have student ambassadors. I was one. I know like what kind of questions come up. So I think having that networking piece is very important to make that decision even more robustly. So yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and actually, what surprised me after graduate school is that it's not just the first job after graduation. It's when you're ready to move on after that. That's when that network you made comes in, because everyone comes into their career several years after they've graduated and figured out what they want to do. So it's not just the network, the people that are important during schooling, it's where they're going. So making friends early will help you later on. And I see Ashwini and Ron smiling. So that's my, we'll call it 1 cent. But last set of questions for both Ron and Ashwini. Ron, I'm going to have you go first. But why is MPOWER's product the best product or loan product for international students, in your opinion?
Yeah, so one thing is fixed interest rates. It's easy to know everything about what you're going to be doing. It's easy to plan things around also because you know pretty much what you're signing up for. And the other thing is, I think we are kind of maybe one or two of the only companies in the market that actually let students do this. So that's why I really believe in Empower. And if Empower is available, clearly when I was going to school, I would have gone like a year earlier. So that's always the biggest plus point for me.
Awesome. So Ashwini, why do you believe in Empower?
I think it's the values with which Empower was started. This is to add on to Ron's points, right? So these are values with which Empower was started. Like Manu, the CEO, a student from his undergraduate program had reached out and said, I don't have $500 and I'm probably going to drop out because of that. And that was a talented student. So I think Manu was like, why is financial burden still hindering people's ability to get a good education, right? He himself was an international student. His co-founder was an international student, and they've all gone through this journey. It's not that they came from very affluent families themselves, right? I mean, for a middle-class family from emerging markets, also can be very difficult coming to the US because of the currency exchange and all. So I think from that standpoint, the product itself was thought of in a manner, how can we minimize, right? It's not a variable rate, it's a fixed interest rate, right? So how do we minimize the impact of students? How do we help them in the journey, right? There is a lot of, some of the banks in India actually charge for visa support letters, right? We give that visa support letter free of cost, right? We also want to make sure that the student has enough options available that there's no cost for application. So students start multiple applications for multiple universities at the same time, right? So these are things, right? How small intricacies have been thought about, and there's a dedicated relationship manager assigned. In fact, I'll tell you how the management team is also trained on, and they have themselves got the compassion. Many of the students and employees many of the employees that empower themselves, because they have been international students, they have that. The hiring process is very like, do they have compassion? Do they have empathy? Do they think about the students, right? So there are a lot of values that are baked into the system to make sure that a student is not being, it's not a one of those traditional prosperous loan products, right? Like home loan or car loan. This is this journey for a student and their career, right? So there's a lot of thought put in that. Like a dedicated relationship manager is assigned, as I was saying, and even cases where a student has got declined, a relationship manager has taken out the time to say, hey, these are the other options that you can look at, right? We don't want you to stop your journey. Some people have said, hey, this is a little expensive, or this is a little, I need a more higher loan amount. So we have been able to substantiate that with other options and other sources for them. So there's a very value-based thinking, and Empower continues to strive and continue to build on that front, as much as possible. Even the fact that they'll be able to build the credit history while they're in school, right? So much thought has been given. Path to Success program. I know what kind of costs are entailed from Empower side, but it's free for the students because we want to make sure that they have the journey set, not just education, but even beyond. What's the final end goal, right? So from that standpoint, I'm really passionate and very happy, working in a place like Empower. And I believe the more people go through the process of application, they'll start seeing that empathy and compassion and understand it's beyond numbers. Also, there's a lot of support to ensure that the student is successful.
And thanks, Ashwini. That's a beautiful way to end our session today. So thank you all for joining us today. If you look at the chat, you'll see a collection of links that you might want to copy paste real quick to save for your own needs, as we're going to close the live session quickly. But you'll be able to check your eligibility for a loan if you haven't yet. You can also contact us with questions we didn't cover today. We're also going to send out a recording of this webinar, and you'll be able to find it on YouTube as well. Finally, we're sending out a survey to all attendees, so please let us know what you think about this session. What do you want to see in the future? Good, bad, ugly, awesome. We want to hear about it, so please enter our survey so we can better serve you. I already said finally. So finally, we have 3 more sessions planned every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for the next few weeks. If we get a lot of interest, we'll keep them up, but we're just doing it, through our busy season right now. So go to our events page. We shared a link. Sign up for the rest of them if you're interested, or share with your friends if you think they'll find value in these sessions. But Thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you, and Ashwini, Ron. Thanks for sharing your insights with everyone and being our esteemed panelists.
Thanks for setting it up, Claire. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye.